Aye, aye. Like and subscribe. Right now! Don't get out of here! I'm 814 Projects, and this is my initial review of the Mullan Plumb Bob Reel. I had never heard of these before until I watched a video from the Dan and Sarah Makers channel. And this guy, Dan, he must be a surveyor, I think, because he has like really extensive knowledge on plumb bob reels. And he shows various types and their features in this video. So before this, I was going to order a Tajima brand plumb bob reel. And then when I saw his video, Dan and Sarah Makers, I found out that this Mullan was made in the USA. So I tracked it down and I was able to purchase it. So I ended up finding it from hardwickandsons.com, and they're based in Idaho. And they sell vintage style hardware, timeless and classy hardware with charm, quality, and style. And they're a family operated company, and they've been around since 1932. And no, they are not sponsoring me. I purchased this with my own money. And I received my product within 2 days of my purchase, and it was like $45 plus $6.32 for shipping, which I thought was pretty reasonable. It did not come with a plumb bob; it was just the reel itself, and I attached I don't know if you can see that here, a Miller's Falls, also made in the USA, Greenfield, Massachusetts. It's an 8-ounce steel plumb bob, and this company, Miller's Falls, is not in business anymore. I think it's been quite some time that they've been in business, and I picked up that plumb bob from eBay, and it could very well be 100 years old. So just to go over some of the features of the Mullan Plumb Bob Reel, this came with the plumb bob in the package. It shows that, which you can see on the Dan and Sarah Makers video, that you can hang this plumb bob reel directly from a string line, like a grid layout, if you're doing survey work. But it says that it saves time and effort. The most accurate, fastest method, line reel, as shown being used, and that's in the top left picture, it being hung from a string line there in a grid setting. And then on the right, the top right, it shows how you can use a hammer and attach this plumb bob reel to a doorway opening or a wall stud and check for plumb. And it automatically is 1¼ inches away from your line, your string line, hanging from the plumb bob reel, and the tip of your plumb bob should be 1¼ inches away from the wall or the wall stud that you hung it from. And I'll show you a little bit more about that here later. And then it also features handy line storage, and you can see in that bottom left picture there that it's being used to check for like wall straightening. It's not, the line is not being drawn vertically, it's being drawn horizontally. They have it tacked into the side of a wall stud, and just like you would use any other string line, they have it pulled across the studs from like one end to the other using a spacer, maybe like a piece of 2x4 in there, to make sure that the wall is straight. And then it says to ask about the magnetic attachment for the plumb bob reel for use with steel studs, structural steel, or any other steel. And I saw that on the website, the hardwickandsons.com website, you can pick up the magnet that attaches to the back of this for, I think it was like $15. And what else is cool is you can buy replacement line for this reel. You can open it up and replace the whole spool of line, and I think that was only maybe $6 or $7 for that. And I think the line that's included is 35 feet, and the replacement lines are also 35 feet. Okay, to go over some of the features of this Mullan Plumb Bob Reel. To start off, I want to show this slot in the top of the Plumb Bob Reel. As Dan from Dan and Sarah Makers mentions, you can hang this directly from a string line in a grid layout, like in a survey setting, and plumb down directly from that spot on the string line, which makes this really convenient for that. I don't do much survey work, so I don't know that I'll be using that much, but the option is available if I ever need to. And I wanted to mention too, there's a spring tensioning mechanism in the center of this, where if you loosen it and turn it counterclockwise, you can withdraw as much line as you need up to the 35 feet. And then when you tighten the spring tensioning mechanism, you can stop the plumb bob without any more line withdrawing. And if you find a happy medium there and loosen it just enough, you can withdraw the plumb bob reel line and get the plumb bob to hold without falling any further. So that makes it really nice. And it has a handle, a folding handle like a chalk line reel, where you can wind in the plumb bob and the plumb bob line really quickly, and you don't have a big mess of mason line, string line laying around that you have to bundle up every time you want to take your plumb bob, remove it, or whatever. And that handle folds right in. Most of this plumb bob reel is made of some type of aluminum alloy. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's definitely a non-ferrous metal. The only ferrous metals on this entire plumb bob reel are the tip there that you drive into the wall stud and the back that you hit with the hammer to drive it into the wall stud. The rest of it is non-ferrous. After doing some reading, I found out that the Mullan Plumb Bob Reel is really popular with union carpenters and millwrights. I haven't spoke to any union carpenters about it, but I'm a big fan of the YouTube channel Unscripted with Antonio, and he is a union carpenter, so I'll have to ask him to see if he's ever used one before and what he thinks of them. I just really think that plumb bobs are cool because it's like ancient technology that's still being used. I mean, compared to a spirit level, a plumb bob predates a spirit level by at least 5,000 years. And I think the first spirit levels were in use or were invented in the mid 17th century, where the first plumb bobs were in use like 4,000 BCE. So they've definitely been around a lot longer than spirit levels. So that, in my mind, that's really cool. And that's why I want to try to use them as often as I can. I switched to voiceover because the audio made my breathing sound like Darth Vader. Chocolate rain, bitch. The only concern that I have with this plumb bob reel is the thickness of the string line. I used a mason line for comparison, and as you can see, the plumb bob reel line is only about half the thickness of the mason's line, so durability could be an issue. Luckily, you can purchase an entire replacement spool of line for a low price. Now for a demonstration using this little turd Ferguson. You have to make sure that the pin is driven into the wall stud completely, and that the larger aluminum housing is flush against the wall stud in order for the line and tip of the plumb bob to be 1 1/4 inches out from what you're plumbing. Then you simply use the hammer, and I would recommend using a smooth face hammer instead of a milled, just so you don't ding up the plumb bob reel too bad. I also recommend not having the plumb bob reeled in so that it's tight against the plumb bob reel, because the hammering will cause it to rattle and the knot will come through the small hole in the plumb bob. Then you just take your tape measure out and you check to see the plumbness. You can check for plumb on anything up to 35 feet in length. And as you can see here, we're at 1¼ inches. And this wall stud in particular looks pretty plumb. I also wanted to mention too that unlike the Tajima plumb right, this leaves pretty large holes in whatever you're checking. So I really don't recommend using this in anything that's finished. I would really only stick to rough framing for hammering that pin in. Now, if you want to use some other method to attach it, that's fine. You can spend $15 on the large magnet and rig a system up to hang the Plumb Bob Reel from. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. Please like and subscribe.